Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's the J Gemini. Tonight we're talking about watches, clearly. And more important, we're talking about my favorite brand, Seiko. A lot of watch brands out there, Rolex, Omega, however you want to go and pronounce it, and a lot of others. People just brag about heritage and their illustrious history. And to me, I reckon that if you take the time to do the research, you'll find that Seiko more than makes up in heritage and history. They make some amazing watches, as you can see out here in front of us. Everything from the simple Seiko 5 series, kind of representative about probably the most popular of the Seiko 5, the SKX009. Very important watch to me, my wedding watch I wore when I was having my son, and when I actually have my second son, which we just found out we're going ahead and having. So this is the Seiko Alpinist, an iconic watch within itself that has a illustrious history with Japanese mountain men that climb the mountains in Japan. And then of course the SKX needs no introduction, but if you don't know, my favorite type of watches are divers. And if there's one thing that Seiko has a deep history in, it is their dive watches. So that is actually what we're going to be talking about today. So when you take and you think about Seiko watches and you say, hey, Seiko watch, diver, SKX, best diver. But I'm actually here to challenge that. And I'm actually this is really to talk about my favorite watch of all that Seiko makes. Probably my favorite watch design ever as well. And that is the SRP Turtle, or Seiko Turtle. Now, in case you need an explanation, the turtle is named the Turtle, well, because of that. Looks like a turtle shell. Easy enough, right? This is a cushion-cased diver that is very thick, protects the bezel. This is complete tool watch, which Seiko are kind of known for with their divers, and not really any other frills. But we'll kind of get into why I like this diver and why there is sort of frills to this particular watch. But first, we need a history lesson on why this watch trumps the SKX, and also to speak about some other divers. So if you were to ask someone who is a big Seiko fan, what's the best watch, the dive watch that Seiko makes, they might say SKX again, or they might say the daddy, the beginning of the Seiko diver, pretty undisputedly, which is the 62 MAS here. It's an elegant design made in the mid-50s. Has a thin bezel, and as you can see, it has the individual minute markings and the slashes and the 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 markings, which you'll find carries through all the generations. So there's just that sprinkling of Seiko heritage right there. Some might actually say the absolute tank, the Marine Master 300. This is a through and through tool of a watch. This is what you would use professionally. There's no doubts about it. It is a dive watch. I cannot stress that enough. But even so, when you look at these watches together, see that same bezel style, you see that almost similar wide top lume marker, similar style sword hands, and it's kind of a mix of the SKX, the Sumo, and of course its own thing. So, it's got the Seiko DNA in spades. So let's kind of do a little reverse engineering here. This is the Seiko SKX, as we said. Very popular to mod, very popular just to leave alone and use as a great, amazing everyday watch. But how did we get here? And how does this beat that? Well, I think we need to go back through the generations. You see, the Seiko SKX, spoiler alert, actually comes from the blood, the DNA of the turtle. So, this is the Captain Willard as it's more popularly known. This Seiko is kind of like the original turtle. Has these big guards, the cushion case, and this was a diver, which if you look at these two together, is very similar. You have a lot of the same markings, the same sort of square design. You start seeing that there's the arrow to make it a little bit more tool, useful. You have this, double lume triangle here, which you can see in the Marine Master as well. You see that how the heritage all is moving together. Look at the bezel on the Marine Master. Look at the bezel on the Captain Willard here. They all start to, come together. Look at the way the date window looks on the MAS and the Captain Willard. So this watch directly evolved to make this, which is kind of gorgeous. It's almost like a dress watch, but it's also a diver as well. How thin and just absolutely wonderful. And I made a review on the San Martin 007, and that watch is an homage to this watch right here. And it's an amazing watch. Go watch that review if you're interested in this, but you don't want to spend almost $10,000, right? But all that aside, Captain Willard, they just recently released, and they're trading for extreme amounts of money as well. So, kind of back to what I was saying here, you can see a lot of DNA here. Another popular design, some people might say is the greatest diver, because it is just as tool as the Marine Master, is the tuna. It's something that has been produced and is very little, very, very small and incrementally changed over the years. You get that same sort of DNA of the dot. Again, this looks a lot more like, what you see the SKX, the font here, just the sort of bolding of the letters and things like that. They've made some small changes. These little lines, I don't know if they're on all the models now, and some of them are automatic, some of them are solar. This is the Seiko quartz back in the 80s where, and probably into the 70s as well, where they took automatic movements that were bulletproof to begin with, and they made them quartz. So instead of moving 5 times a second, they move 1 time a second. So they're like practically indestructible, overbuilt tanks, just complete tools, like I said, which is what I love about Seiko. It just sort of thumbs its nose at Rolex and companies like that started as a tool watch, but it's definitely more of a luxury piece, while Seiko is definitely, although they make gorgeous watches with nice finishing, and sometimes the fit and finish is not right on, but sometimes you get one that's perfect like this, and everything's practically aligned how you want it. And I just love that about them. So you could argue the tuna, but I say the turtle, because if we follow the bloodline, we start with the SKX, which everybody loves, and is kind of the golden boy of Seiko dive community. If you go back to its previous generation, you actually hit the 7002. These watches are practically identical in a lot of the styling, but the 7002 had a different movement than the 7S26, which is the insanely reliable movement. Let's see what one looks like. Oh, I don't know. If you want to see what the movement that is in the SKX looks like, it looks exactly like this, because this is a 7S26. Insanely reliable. 10 to 15 years between maintenance if you just leave it alone. They're, great, amazing movements. They don't have all the bells and whistles like hand winding, where you can just wind the watch up and it starts going. You do have to wear it and it starts. It also doesn't have seconds hacking, so you can't pull out the crown. It stops at the 12, set the marker, and then put it on. You just gotta kind of get it pretty much in the range of what time it is and go from there. But the Seiko SKX was an upgrade in just about every way over the 7002. It had a better movement. I think 2 hours more power reserve. I might be wrong again. Again, not the most into vintage, but I do like the heritage and try to follow the bloodline, right? It had better lume, but in the case, they made certain changes around, the way that this is, finished a little bit more, rounded off instead of sharp components, just little tiny minor tweaks, right? But where did this watch come from? Also, if you want this watch and this dial on this watch, the very rare, and I definitely want to get SKX013 is the 7002 dial on the SKX with a date window. So that's definitely a cool one. They're becoming harder to buy. So don't buy them all up because I want one. But this had to come from somewhere. And it did. It came from this. This is a 6309. Now, if you know anything about Seikos, that number might sound familiar to you. That's because this is a 6309. This look familiar? Oh wait, it's practically identical. You see, the Captain Willard here transformed into 6309 Turtle that is then transformed into the SRP, but they really didn't transform very much. The dial has remained the exact same instead of changing like the SKX. The shapes have almost remained exactly the same. The bezel styling. This is probably the most long-lasting. Again, the tuner's pretty close too because they really haven't changed much. Maybe certain dial configurations, but pound for pound, this is the most similar Seiko to its previous design other than the Captain Willard once they changed it. And that's right there is the reason why it's my favorite because of the way it looks, but that's just that little extra cherry on top. But let's get back to history lessons, right? So this watch is around the 6309. Then the 6309 Slim Turtle is made. And then that goes from the date that, because there are upgrades to the 7002. And then we get the SKX. That means that this SKX is actually a Slim Turtle. That means that it's a descendant bloodline to the exact identical Turtle 6309 modern version, which is the SRP. So to me, seeing the fact that this watch, which is on this gorgeous, another part of Seiko history, modern version, Seiko made GL831 strap. A lot of people know this to be the most comfortable strap that Seiko has made. Has the iconic keeper with 4 holes, and the original one from the watches from the 80s and 90s had little holes and vents here too. This is a modern day version made out of modern day materials so it doesn't crack, and it's really soft like an Apple Watch band. Really happy to pick that up. And it just completes the watch completely. Just kind of brings it full circle. Because this is a old watch, SRP from the 80s, maybe even 70s, 77, I think these things were around, with an old GL. And I have this modern GL. And to me, if that just doesn't tell you what you need to know about why this is my favorite, I really don't know what else I can say. But again, just to kind of drive this home, this has a melting pot of all the heritage, right? This, which is directly, in so many ways, we already went over it, directly descended, into this and evolved, goes into this. And it also trickles down into the SKX. It has complete bloodlines and ties of every single important Seiko watch that is known and loved throughout the range. So that is in a nutshell, why I like the Turtle. And kind of wrapping things up, this watch has such a community, right? That is right there directly in line with the SKX, and it has that modern community of Seiko, where there's so many different special editions to make it feel like, even though if you get the black version, and it's just so classic, you can also get, you know, wild special editions, green ones with little yellow, you know, markers on them that are rare, and the beautiful sort of, gosh, what is that one? The SRP73, I think. But anyways, it's probably SRPC73. There's the Save the Ocean versions. There's the Manta Ray Turtles. There is, again, just so many different versions. The one I was, you know, talking about is a turtle that has a really dark gray sunburst dial. It's one of the most pretty ones for sure. But long story short, you get the modern appeal, kind of like with a company like Spyderco, right? Where there's so many different versions that you can really sort of relish in what you have and feel part of a modern community. But you also have all this heritage right on your wrist every single day. There's just, you know, people fought wars with these watches, right? There's been hours, countless hours under the you know, ocean and diving with this watch. I mean, it's just so, it has, to me, just as much prestige and should get way more love than it does. And maybe it's because people think it is a little big, but because of the short lugs, I don't have a big wrist at all, and it fits, you know, in between the wrist. So to me, it's great, it's fine. So just about any person, unless you got a tiny wrist, can wear this watch. And it just makes me, at least, feel so powerful. It's so masculine without looking like a, you know, Aventa door with all these triangles and shapes to it. It's simple, but it's just powerful, and I just am really happy to own it. And yeah, I wanted to make this video and sort of a appreciation and pride of this watch, and hopefully that makes you maybe think about it, right? Whether you want to take the leap and go ahead and get one as well, or even if it's not your cup of tea, but the next time you see it, you know what that watch is all about now. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I just sort of like wanted to make it, being such a big Seiko fan and just having such a fiery love for the Turtle series. So I hope you enjoyed. Oh, you can customize the hell out of them too. Wanted to get that out of the way before I forget or don't mention that. But other than that, that's really everything. I hope you guys enjoyed this video on the watch and maybe learned a little bit about, you know, Seiko's history as well. Just real high level stuff, not anything super deep about, you know, time records or the movements inside, but you get the gist of it. I really enjoyed making it, and you know, hope to make more like this. Of course, if you did like this video, it goes without saying, it really helps the channel if you do give a like. I love commenting, especially about watches, right? And if you do like video like this and more to come, please hit that subscribe button, as we are definitely on par to get my goal of 1,000 subscribers, 1K by the end of the year. Most importantly, I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. There's so many amazing content creators you could be watching right now. Of course, I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care and be safe. Peace.